It is a travesty. Frankly, I don't think it's acceptable, man. I think it's the worst announcement ever. I think it might be the worst announcement, Hot Toys announcement, really.
It's straight up plastic. And as cool as the character design is, it is a letdown. No doubt about it.
Look like a Mondo figure, Marvel Legend, whatever you want to call it.
Hot Toys. Just put a fucking suit on this thing and then it's done. Then it can be a proper Spider-Man 2099.
My name is Miguel O'Hara. I'm this dimension's one and only perfect Hot Toys Spider-Man figure. I don't always like crying to get figures fixed, but I know I have to be the one to do it.
Yes, you heard that right, ladies and gentlemen. The Hot Toys community actually accomplished something for once, and that was with Spider-Man 2099. Just to give a brief TED Talk about this figure, it was definitely one of the most controversial figure announcements of 2023, and let me explain why.
Yes, let this man cook!
As the intro mentioned, this figure was announced in May of 2023, a month before the initial release of this film, Across the Spider-Verse. Now I bet you're probably thinking to yourself, no way, a figure announcement before the actual movie comes out. That's very rare to see and super exciting. Yeah, so that didn't really happen. Hot Toys decided to create a figure with a very different approach. They wanted to prioritize articulation over realism. Now, I could go further deep into this, but the short story is that 95% of the Hot Toys community absolutely hated this. Absolutely nobody wanted to pay $250 for a figure that looks like it's a Marvel Legend. It just didn't make sense to have a jointed mess of a figure next to your other Hot Toys line of clean and aesthetic and realistic approaches to the character. So after some long cries, a couple rant videos, 3 months later, we received an updated production photo of Spider-Man 2099. Now, flash forward to a year and a half later, it is now January 2025, and we are going to be opening the final product of this updated figure. The figure that the community got changing it from fail to an absolute grail. Kicking things off with the box art, which is super well done, to be honest. It definitely screams out that summer Across the Spider-Verse vibe from 2023. Damn it if I don't just miss it. Now, before we actually dive into the figure itself, let's see everything he comes with. You're honestly not getting too much here, and I don't think you really need it. But the first thing I have to dive into is the Miguel sculpt. And to be completely honest, it is literally perfection. You get your usual rolling eyeball system, you can literally make bro cross-eyed, and just look at all the little details on this tiny ass accessory. Those do not go unnoticed, so good shit, Hot Toys. Miguel can actually wear this and move it up and down, and I'm not too big a fan of these two accessories. I feel like they kind of make the figure look cheap, but that's just my opinion. Couple hands, you don't need much here since he obviously doesn't need web shooting hands since he is a freak of nature and he has issues. You also get this display base, which honestly I really like. I love the way the colors pop on it, and the actual text style is sort of comic booky looking from the movie, which was really cool to see. You know what I don't love though? These pieces of shit waist grabbers. Do not use this on your figure long term. It will guaranteed dig into the suit and damage it. So just throw those away and never think of them again. Now, Hot Toys love to give us cardboard backdrops, and I've almost never been a fan of them. I have seen them in some photos and it does look cool, but yeah, they take up way too much room and I just don't think they look that good personally. You know what I think really looks good though? This. Literally this. This is a perfect Hot Toys Spider-Man figure. And let me explain why. One of the biggest outliers in this specific release, judging from my first impression, is the proportions. I have never owned a Spider-Man figure with better proportions than this updated Spider-Man 2099. Hot Toys adding this fabric suit over the jointed body allowed them to pretty much get proportions down to a science. The only thing I'd say if I was super critical is that maybe it is a tad too bulky, but nah, man, this is literally perfect. Like, try and find a single thing that is wrong. What? Wait. No. Where are your cheeks? Alright, it's time to address the pancakes in the room. At least there was something I missed about the old Proto. It looks like when Hot Toys added the fabric suit, it also shrunk his ass. Now, you think I'm kidding and I'm being a little sus, but 2099 literally had ass in the movie. Like, I have photo proof right here of his sculpted ass being huge. But, you know, who needs ass on their Spider-Man figures? Like, come on, guys. Okay, back on topic. Most Hot Toys Spider-Man figures tend to not really get nailed proportion-wise, but as I mentioned before, I really think they hit the nail on the head here. It just looks pretty close to perfect to screen accuracy. The dude literally has the Dorito physique. What I also love that they included is that there is a UV reflection ray. Don't ask why I have a black light flashlight, but this is so sweet. You can see all the added and meticulous detail on the suit. And I just thought this was really cool. I've never actually tried this on a figure before, and it was really nice. You can even see the details on his pancake. But in all seriousness, this adds even more shelf presence to this beast, and figure photographers can have a field day with this one. I also love how they made these shoulders super defined and very sharp looking, similar to how he was in the film. The original Proto obviously looked a lot more slimmer and sleek, having the jointed body only, but with this fabric added onto it, it really just, again, makes the proportions that much better. So I put this cape accessory on just to test how it looks, and honestly, I'm still not crazy about it. For starters, I hate how the cape is just stuck in this flow state. I really think they should have added a straight cape so you can just have it behind his body, rather than have it flying outward. Kind of limits you when you want to do certain poses, which I'm not a fan of. Having said that, when you get it in the right pose, it does look pretty cool. It's growing on me a bit, but it's still something that I probably wouldn't display permanently. Now, the next thing I wanted to discuss is the size of this figure. I mean, he is massive. Even 1/12 figures don't reach up to his balls. Half of its body is basically the size of the head. Like, damn. The definition of you versus the guy she tells you not to worry about. When taking a closer look at the Miguel sculpt, you can see they did not slack even in animation. The hair strands on the front is a nice touch. The movable eye features is just icing on the cake. You can have Miguel looking in any direction and truly create some really cool poses. I mean, even right here, moving his eyes up looks like he's ready to kick Miles' ass harder. Okay, now here's the real question. Which sculpt will you be displaying? Because honestly, you can't go wrong with either or. I'm leaning on the masked version personally, but that's just me. Okay, maybe I jumped the gun, because without the mask, it does look pretty damn amazing. Now, we're gonna dive into articulation, but one of the things I wanted to address was the crease marks around the neck. This is something that was kind of bothering me a bit, because everything looks very flush and nice, but as soon as you move the head down or make him look down, you kind of get that ridge around his throat area. It's not a deal breaker, and I don't really think there's a way for Hot Toys to fix that, but I did want to clarify that it was kind of like annoying me. I'm like, why can't it just be perfectly straight? And yes, I know there's people out there saying,
if it wasn't fabric, then this wouldn't even be an issue.
while that may be true, it also would look like an SH figure art, so yeah, I'm good on this. And as you can see, the articulation is pretty insane on this figure. You can turn his head in pretty much any direction you want and have him look up to like the straight up sky. And this is getting me mad excited to pose. Okay, now this is a big portion of the video because everyone hates how Hot Toys make fabric suits instead of jointed figures. And this originally was jointed and we got it changed. And let me explain why this argument really makes no sense. There are two reasons why collectors would want jointed figures: more articulation and not having to suffer any damages on the suit or figure itself. Now, for the first one, how exactly would you get better articulation without a fabric suit? Adding a fabric suit alleviates the issue of having an aesthetically pleasing jointed figure. So it gives Hot Toys the opportunity to put as many joints as they want. People will say, oh, it'll get bunched and it won't be able to get extended as far. I mean, what more could I say? Even a shit poser like myself could get this done. It's pretty evident that articulation is a non-issue with this fabric suit. Now, the most obvious problem: creasing, damage, etc., etc. This is something that people cannot stand with Spider-Man figures, posing them for long periods of time and having to deal with creases or damage. Some people don't really do their research with jointed figures because you can face damages with that as well, and can sometimes even face worse damage. I mean, the literal $20.99 prototype at the event when we first saw this announced had paint chipping and scrapes around the hips. You're meaning to tell me you're gonna pay $250+ for a jointed figure that can also damage? We literally just made a video where a articulated Mondo Spider-Man was inflicting self-harm onto itself. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there's zero damage on fabric suits. Yes, there will always be a risk of crease or damage with a fully fabric suit. That said, I've made countless videos experimenting the longevity of Spider-Man figures, and for the most part, unless it's not super long-term, you really don't face that many issues, unless it's in an absolute extreme pose. Also, another argument is that fabric kind of make these suits look ugly and bunched up, but if this was a real-life suit and someone was crouched like this is how it would look because it looks like a real suit, if that makes sense. But by all means, if you don't enjoy how this looks and you don't want to buy it for that reason, being fabric, it looks pajama-like, that's fine, but I just wanted to give my thoughts on the whole controversy of this release. Rant over. Okay, let's get to the feet, which still have those ridges around the ankles. I know that bothers people out there. I don't think this one is as prominent, so it doesn't really bother me so much. You can sort of see it around the wrists as well, which is a little more prominent, but it is what it is. It's not that big of a deal. You get the Hot Toys trademark with the toe articulation, which is always a nice touch when posing. Now, quick disclaimer, please be careful with the fins here because they are very fragile. As cool as they look, they do get in the way a lot. It's even hard to have bro like sitting flat on your table, so just be careful with these fins, they could break. You're a mistake! I can definitely double down on how good the articulation turned out on this figure. While yes, given the fabric nature of the suit, he may look a little bit less good proportionally when he's in certain poses, but regardless, this is what you're used to with Hot Toy figures, and I still think it looks pretty fucking sick. For some quick comparisons, I wanted to showcase the Miles Morales from Into the Spider-Verse. Yes, I know it's not accurate to a cross, but we do not have that announcement released yet. And my previous best Spider-Man figure ever, the Tom Holland red and blue suit from the final swing in No Way Home. Now, the only reason why $20.99 trumps Tom Holland here is proportion-wise. I think that the Tom Holland still isn't perfect proportionally, while the $20.99, for instance, I have zero issues with. Am I the only one who finds it hard to believe that Miles stood a chance against this $20.99? I mean, he's not even up to his shoulder level. And oh my god, this figure is just too big. He literally makes dioramas look small. Like, what? Is it possible Hot Toys overscaled him? Maybe? That's another video for another day. But these look excellent together. I'm really excited to see how the Across the Spider-Verse Miles turns out. Now, this was super simple to put on. You just take out the hand and slot in the wrist gauntlet, and it looks pretty damn cool. I'm kind of tempted to even leave it on permanently, but let me know what you guys would do. Again, I know I sound like a broken record, but you can just tilt this head, move the arms, whichever way you like. I love the articulation on this figure. They absolutely nailed it. I would say this figure definitely looks the best when you have a museum pose like this. You practically get zero bunching, but when you pose dynamically such as this is when it tends to look more creased up. You can see I also plugged in the webs in his hand here. Very easily, you just slot it into the open hole, and you're basically done. I'm well and truly in disbelief at how a Hot Toy collector could not prefer this fabric version in comparison to the jointed. Just think about how ugly this would look with all the joints being presented and having the fabric Miles under him. Like, it just wouldn't really make any sense to a Hot Toy collection. I have to say though, pairing these together is so peak. I love the way this looks. Again, I am using the waist grabber here, but only for like a short period. I'm gonna take it off right after, but just make sure to not leave that long term. But this is just peak, man. Just ripped straight off the comic book film, and I cannot wait for Beyond the Spider-Verse, which is gonna come out in 2050 at this rate. These recent movie delays literally make me want to eat glass, so that's cool. Nah, tell me why Miles got more cheeks than Miguel. What are you doing, Hot Toys?
This is outrageous.
Wrapping things up, this figure went through a long and grueling journey, but in the end, 1/6 Collectors absolutely won. And keep in mind, if this figure stayed in the prototype stage, it would not be sitting right here on my shelf. I would not even touch this figure. I've owned probably 30 plus Spider-Man Hot Toys at this point, And if someone asked me for a recommendation, this would be number one on my list. I truly think proportionally, both sculpts, articulation, everything about it is pretty close to perfection. I think Hot Toys really put their all into this release, which they don't always do with Spider-Man. But given all the feedback, they absolutely cooked here. And for the people out there who wanted the original, sucks to suck.
Miles, the blood!